Hi, guys. If you saw Tucker Carlson yesterday, then you have a very good idea of what today's topic is. What I'm about to say is alarming, but please keep in mind that my goal isn't to immobilize you with fear. It's to keep you informed and prepared. And I know how much you guys love to see me analyze Erica Kirk and all her bizarre behavior, and those are fun. And I love to do those, and I will. But I wanted to make this video because this really actually matters. It's very easy for us in the US, I think, to get stuck in our head and kind of stay concentrated on what's going on in our own country, celebrities and athletes and games and the weather and all that stuff. And I'm not saying that none of that matters, but once in a while we need to poke our heads out and look around and see what's going on in the world, because we are still part of it. Whether or not we keep that in mind, whether or not we think that, other nations even matter, or why should we pay attention? We absolutely must, especially at this time. We are living through some very strange times, and it's important to just stay abreast, even if it's, once a week, to know what's going on in the rest of the world and how it could possibly affect us. So, Russia has threatened a nuclear attack on the UK and Germany if the Ukraine war doesn't end in the next 1 to 2 years. That's not saber rattling, you guys. This is real. So, how did we get here, and what part, if any, does Donald Trump's erratic invasions and threats of invasions play in this? And more importantly, what does that mean for us, the American people? Now, last time I made one of these videos, someone chimed in the comments like, well, you're not an expert, so you should have no opinion about this. And while I definitely am not an expert, I just want to remind you guys a little bit about my background so that you understand why I make these videos. I do have a degree in international relations and economics, and I served in the US Army as a military intelligence analyst. And while I'm not an expert currently working in this field, I do have some knowledge and some experience in this area. Also, international relations is extremely important to me because it shapes so much of what happens within our borders, and understanding how all the countries are, working together, or all the conflicts and where they are and the repercussions of those conflicts, I think is very important for any American to know, because we are a world superpower, and eventually we are going to be either directly involved in it or indirectly. If there's a conflict somewhere else, it's going to drive a lot of refugees. And so regardless, we're going to be affected by it. So I think it's important to know what's going on and to know our part in it. So let's get into it. Okay, so 3 pivotal things happened yesterday. Number 1, Danish Foreign Minister Lars Rasmussen and Greenland's Foreign Minister Vivian Motzfeldt held a press conference after their initial security talks with Donald Trump and Marco Rubio. The wording was very cautious, and by the look on their faces, I don't think it went well. Lars made it clear that no matter what Trump says, no Chinese warships have been around Greenland for decades. Neither has there been, nor will there be, structural Chinese investment in Greenland, quote, now or in the future. So Trump saying that, if we don't take Greenland, then China and Russia will, that's not founded on facts. It's like a fantasy. That's just and look, I get it, right? Because we're busy, everybody's busy. And we imagine that if the president says something, that it's based on facts, right? That you can trust your leader, your POTUS, to say things that are true, because why would he must know what he's talking about, right? Why would he lie about something like that? But it is a lie. I'm here to tell you. And Lars said as much, and he was very kind about it. But like I said, watch the video for yourself, and you'll see. Basically, he's saying okay, well, I don't know where he got that from, but no, that's absolutely not true. None of it is true. This is why it's so important, you guys. And sadly, this is the point that we're at right now in the United States, that we can't even trust the president to say things that are just true and keep everything else out of it. There's a lot of narrative building and a lot of, just putting propaganda, just putting things out there and seeing what sticks. He's very ambiguous about a lot of things, but even this claim, he never backed it up with anything. And now, the foreign minister in Denmark said as much. Like, there's nothing. So where did he get this from? I have no idea. Lars also made it very clear that there is a, quote, fundamental disagreement between the U.S. and Denmark. And while they're hoping for more talks and, quote, respectful cooperation, that doesn't mean, quote, that we want to be owned by the United States. I don't understand fully Trump's what's going on in his head. I'm not sure that it can be, so many people have said, well, he's a narcissist. I don't think it's so easily like dismissed. I think there's something wrong. And I feel like I have deja vu. Like, we just had a president that was not in his mind. We literally just had that for 4 years. And now I feel like we're just going through that again. Here we go again. Now we have another POTUS that is not operating optimally or normally or even in a healthy manner. But unlike Biden, who was just kind of like a vegetable, Trump is like an angry vegetable. Trump is like out there, fulfilling his delusions. And this is all very scary because I know that you guys think like, oh, MAGA, and yeah, this is America first. It's not. And I'll explain why. But I don't know if it's him, saying this to himself, if it's the people around him. I don't know if it's like his fans. I don't know if people are sending him so many like, yeah, go get him, that's all he's reading. But none of this makes sense. None of this is normal for a leader, a world leader, to conduct himself in this way and to speak in this way. Like, these are things that we saw in other countries that we used to criticize. Like, oh my God, look at that guy. And now it's us. But we just came from 4 disastrous years. And now we're going into even worse years. I don't understand where this is going to end. But it's not going to end well. I can tell you that already. Lars kept stressing that the red line of the Kingdom of Denmark must be respected. Basically saying, we're not going to back down. And he also said that it doesn't seem like Trump is willing to back down either. So while he hopes that it happens, he's not confident that it will. And this is important, you guys. Denmark is a NATO member. And no matter how you feel about NATO, like, I personally do not agree with it, or I didn't before now. Now I'm beginning to see like why it's useful. But regardless of your feelings about NATO, there is some type of treaty, there is some type of pact. So invading Greenland would set a very dangerous precedent and would put us all in peril. But this also reveals the hypocrisy of our involvement in Ukraine, because Trump says that he has to go into Greenland for security purposes, but security is Russia's same concern and why they entered Ukraine. So then what the fuck are we doing? Ironically, Europe is not supporting Trump in Venezuela or in Greenland. Germany asserts that Greenland will be defended by NATO, meaning Europe. Keep that in mind because that's going to be pivotal in a few minutes. Now, the second thing that happened yesterday was that the War Powers Act that would have prevented Trump from declaring a war in Venezuela without congressional approval was blocked, meaning that Trump now has been given full power to drag us into war without any oversight. And that's thanks to Josh Hawley, GOP senator from Missouri. Hawley voted for the act initially, but then he reneged. Why? Because Trump was calling senators, threatening them with expletives and yelling at them. And I guess that poor Josh couldn't take it. Now, there are a lot of videos on social media of Hawley grilling people during congressional hearings, which we all know is nothing but pure theater. Nothing ever comes out of that. It's just, they're arguing and it looks like something's happening and then nothing ever comes of it. This is just theater. But the truth is that he's a spineless coward. He's a useful idiot who isn't fit to serve the good people of this amazing nation. Because instead of protecting Americans from an executive branch that can do whatever it wants, whenever it wants, he tucked and folded. Now, I've heard some Americans cheer for this because Obviously, they don't understand that this president will outlive Trump. Giving Trump unregulated powers means giving every president after him the same power. Think about that and what that will mean if the next guy or the one after him has an agenda that not only endangers our country, but goes against our Constitution. I mean, who's going to stop him? Worse, who's going to stop Trump? Because I have no doubt that Trump will take this power and use it against Greenland. And if he does, we're in a world of pain so deep and so broad, it's beyond anything we've ever experienced. Not only are we opening ourselves up to retaliation from other nations, but an unstable America means that confidence in the American dollar will tank. And once that happens, inflation will go through the roof. That's the reality. Keep in mind that our currency isn't tied to gold or anything real. It's fiat money. The only thing tied to our currency is the world's perception of our national stability. That's it. And once that's gone, it's all gone. Then I watched Tucker interview a man by the name of Sergei Karaganov, Putin's close advisor and head of Russia's Council for Foreign and Defense Policy, who confirmed that if the war in Ukraine doesn't end in a year or two, that's exactly what he said, in a year or two, Russia will nuke both the UK and Germany. It was a very long interview, but I'll try to be succinct. First, it's important to understand that Russia is a massive country, bigger than China and India combined, with a healthy GDP and super rich in resources. For example, it has the highest uranium source in the world. It has gold, bauxite, silver, timber, wheat, farmland, on and on. But it only has 143.4 million people. I mean, that's mind-blowing. So they have this huge landmass and all these resources, and they barely have a population. So of course, every other power wants Russia. When the USSR fell, Russia was pillaged, both from within, with the oligarchs, and from foreigners, from without. And the country was economically destroyed. Then Putin took office, and the oligarchs were forced to either work with him or get kicked out, or worse. And he cleaned up the country. So in 2001, Putin asked George Bush to join NATO, but Bush rejected his offer. And that was a stupid move. Russia found other allies. The Ukraine has been the focus of world powers for at least 30 years. Why? To get closer to Russia, to destabilize it, to weaken it, and to get its resources. NATO parked itself on Russia's border. 4 years ago, Russia retaliated, which is of course exactly what NATO wanted to begin with, a proxy war. But then came the fatal flaw. Biden kicked Russia out of SWIFT, took oligarch assets, and sabotaged the dollar. How? Because the instability caused nations to lose confidence in the US, dump bonds, and buy gold. To give you context, gold trading went from $17.97 an ounce in 2022 to $45.92 today. That's a frightening trajectory for the dollar. Biden's faux pas also drove Russia into a stronger alliance with China, strengthening BRICS. Now, do you think that would have happened if Russia had been allowed to join NATO in 2001? Probably not. After 4 years of conflict in the Ukraine, Russia has had it. And according to Sergei Karaganov, they're ready to end it. If negotiations don't work, then they're threatening to attack what they consider to be the root of the problem, Germany and the UK. And obviously, Putin is keeping a very close eye on Trump and his escapades. I want you guys to remember that every conflict that Trump drags us into creates more debt. And not only that, it puts our military in peril for no good reason. I could tell that Trump was out of his depth when he promised big oil that Venezuela would be totally safe for them to invest in, as if there weren't a dozen armed non-state actors in the country that could really F things up if they wanted. And for what? Venezuela didn't attack the US, and it only produces 1% of the world's oil. So resources aren't the reason we went in there. So what is? In my opinion, it's about control and control of the narrative. To concentrate power and shift authority away from the legislative branch to the executive. Notice that every time Congress starts asking questions, a new emergency appears. Trump has only released 1% of the Epstein files, violating his own Transparency Act. Massey and Ro Khanna began demanding court intervention on July 15, 2025. And Trump immediately declared a national emergency related to illicit drugs from Canada and threats from Brazil. Okay, what? Pay attention and you'll notice that this is Trump's pattern, his way of shifting attention away from him and power towards him. But it won't work forever. And mark my words, this is his last year in office. But regardless, Putin has shed light on a very interesting dilemma for the EU. They're defenseless without us. The question is, would the US get involved if the worst actually happened? No. No, God forbid it should happen, but no, we wouldn't and we shouldn't. I grew up in the Cold War 80s when nuclear sirens were rung every Sunday in our local church just a few blocks away. Now, I'm not sure how many of you remember that or how many of you were even alive to experience it, but that does something to you as a kid. I've read too many comments on X cheering Trump for all of these crazy stunts. Yeah, MAGA, yeah, we're in control. Yeah, if you don't like it, cry. What? Only people who don't understand how currency values work, how fragile our currency is, or who have never experienced war, or who mistakenly think that they have no skin in the game, are capable of making such stupid statements. Please, you guys, don't be one of them. This isn't about MAGA. This is real. And there's a lot riding on our ability to think clearly. See you on the next vid.